action.
All right, we are back for lesson 2. A couple things I wanted to mention. This is a very interesting time for all of us, and psychology stuff is popping up all around. The first thing I saw on Twitter. So this was on Twitter. I am checking Twitter all the time, and maybe not you guys, but I'm sure your parents have mentioned about how the economic impact of the coronavirus, and a lot of people who have savings in the stock market and that sort of thing, the stock market is not doing too hot right now. So there was this little Twitter advertisement from a financial advisor, and they were talking about, don't freak out, put this in the bigger picture, and they mentioned 3 psych terms that we have learned about. Number 1, confirmation bias. They said, be careful, right? Don't go out there reading things that are just going to cement these kind of fears you have in your head. Remember, confirmation bias is an active looking to reinforce beliefs we already hold. So if we think, oh my gosh, the world's coming to an end, we're never going to have retirement, you could go out and find that right now. All right, number 2, they said, be careful of availability bias. If you remember, we learned about the availability heuristic, right? Whatever is recent and it's popping into our mind, we think that is more commonplace than it actually is. So right now, it's like doom, gloom, economic strife coming. So just be careful about giving too much weight to recent events. And then the framing effect. They said, be careful about the way these things are being framed in the news. Okay, because as we learned, right, wording matters. We talked about it with surveys, and we talked about it with framing in this last chapter in the cognitive chapter that we did. All right, second, I watched The Mayor this afternoon, and he basically made a plea, like, even if you aren't worried, which is basically all of you, right? Younger people who probably aren't worried, you're getting out with your friends. He said, you're still carriers, and we as a people need to care not about ourselves, we need to care for everyone else, and that's why we all should be staying at home. So what does that sound like? That sounds like a collectivist culture, right? But America is not. America is individualistic. We're all about ourselves. And so we have to get over that to kind of help flatten the curve so that our health systems aren't overrun with people who need ventilators. So anyway, I just thought we'd lead off with that, something very interesting. You guys have learned a lot this year. So when you're talking with your parents about this, you can bring up things that we've learned about, because it's really, you guys have a knowledge base to kind of really understand what's going on. All right, so we'll start lesson 2. We are going to start with compliance. Compliance basically is doing something that somebody has asked you to do. So I have asked you to do these 3 lessons this week. To do the exit ticket, I'm encouraging you with extra credit. You will choose either to do it, in which you have complied with my request, or to ignore me, in which, you can ignore me. Grade will suffer, but you can ignore me. But that's what compliance is. Somebody asks you to do something. Mom asked you to do the dishes. If you say yes, you've complied. Okay? Let's see. That is compliance. All right, there are strategies. Sometimes we do things and we don't realize we're saying yes to them. And this advertisers use. So we're gonna talk about these strategies a lot in kind of the framework of advertisements and how they get us to do things that maybe we don't realize they're asking us to do. There is a model called the elaboration likelihood model. Now, this is new vocabulary for this year. Elaboration likelihood model basically says there are 2 different ways that people can be persuaded. Okay, overarching 2 different ways that people can be persuaded. And it's based upon how interested they are in a topic. Okay, so if you are really interested, if you are very invested in something, then you are going to fall under what's called the central route to persuasion. Okay, so you are going to want to know all the facts. You're going to want to know all the nitty-gritty of the ingredients and of drugs and the pros and the cons. That's the central route. Okay, the central route is we want to argue. We want all the facts. We want to delve deep into what is going on so we can make a well-educated decision because we're strongly invested. Or we could not really care that much. And when we don't really care that much, when we're not strongly invested in a decision, like what to eat that day or what to wear to school, okay, we are more swayed by the peripheral route to persuasion. The peripheral route to persuasion is basically influenced by incidental cues, so celebrity endorsements, or maybe, we like the look of the wrapping on that candy bar, so I'm gonna try it. Okay, so things that are not really have anything to do with the actual product or the actual decision. It's other stuff out there that is causing us to make the decision. Okay, a lot of times celebrities endorse different products, and if we like that celebrity, sure, we'll try that mouthwash. Sure, we'll try that toothpaste. Sure, we will go to that restaurant or try the Nespresso because George Clooney is advertising it. Like, I need coffee. I don't care what coffee maker I have, but George Clooney is good looking, so I'm going to go with his. That has nothing to do with the product. That's just, he's a celebrity. I like him. I'll go with that. All right, so elaboration likelihood model says, right, we kind of have two routes, and it depends on how interested, how invested we are. Whether we go the central route, we do the pros and cons, we want to know all the details, or we go the peripheral route, and we just have these incidental cues that are influencing our decision. So we are going to run through a variety of persuasion techniques. I have linked on the website, if you look onto enrichment activities, there is a persuasion worksheet. I did work very hard. I actually updated it before spring break. It is a review of all of these. In an ideal world, this would have been credit in class. I might still use it depending on how things go next week, because I know you guys will need grades and that sort of thing. It can be found on the website. I know not everybody has printers capabilities. I do have copies of these already printed out in the classroom, so if we ever get back, you can use that one. It should be pretty easy for you guys to answer this and work through which one is which. Underneath that, I have linked a couple videos, and these would be videos I would show you in class, just as an extra example in real life advertisements that use these techniques. I do have two very special guests that are going to act out the first two we're going to talk about. So we will start with foot in the door. Foot in the door. Here's an example.
Mommy?
Yes, Avery.
Can I have Caroline over?
I guess. You can have Caroline over. That's okay.
What about Paisley?
Oh, I guess since I already said yes to Caroline, I'll say yes to Paisley.
And Hannah and Quinn?
Ooh, now you got me saying yes to everything. All right, they can come over too.
What about sleepover?
Ooh, a sleepover. All right, somehow I went from one friend to come over to a sleepover with 4. Okay.
What? No!
All right, so foot in the door, what we just illustrated is Avery started with a very small request. Okay, why it's called foot in the door, right? You just want to get your foot in the door. So she starts with something small, and then she builds up to what she wanted in the first place, was to spend the night with 4 of her friends, which we are not doing because of social distancing.
Yes.
But that is foot in the door. You start small, and you build up to something bigger. And we're going to come back to this when we talk about a really big social psych experiment next lesson, when we talk about Milgram. So foot in the door is a very popular one. It's probably the most popular one they like to ask about. So foot in the door, we start small, then we build up bigger and bigger requests. Okay, because you've said yes to the little thing, you're more likely then to keep saying yes to the bigger things. All right.
Good to know, Mom.
Door in the face, my second helper. Dawson.
What? I want the chair. Okay, fine. Hi. Mom, can you get that Lego you totally promised me like a year ago? It's only $800, just a drop in the bucket. Right?
$800 is ridiculous. No.
Okay. How about that other one that's like $25 at the store?
All right, I can do $25.
Okay, fine. Shout out to Joel for your comment. Thank you.
All right. Dawson liked Joel's comment about the river. Thank you, Joel, for watching the YouTube
Yes.
video. They are now going to go and isolate themselves in their rooms. All right. During the feast, you ask for something big, something you know they're going to say no to. Then you come back and you ask for something more reasonable. So Dawson started out saying $800 Lego. I'm going to say no. He knows I'm going to say no. And then he comes back and asks for a more reasonable request.
Take notes.
And I said yes. All right, low ball. With low ball, okay, you happens a lot with used cars or any cars. There's an advertised great deal for a car. So you go and say, okay, well, this is the deal I want. Okay, $25,000 for a Mercedes. Awesome, that's what I want. You're advertising it. I'm coming in the door because of this low ball, this low price. And then you go and you sit down to sign the papers to buy your car. And they're like, oh, okay, well, you wanted 4 tires. I'm going to add on $400 a tire. Oh, you wanted power steering? Okay, well, I'm going to add on $1,500 for the power steering. Oh, you wanted like electronic windows? Okay, well, we're going to add on $2,000 for electronic windows. Oh, you wanted it painted? Oh, well, we're going to add on $500 for a paint job. Okay, so they got you in low. But when you sit down to buy it, they tack on little by little, and then it's not really that great of a deal. Mere exposure. Mere exposure basically says the more you are exposed to something, the more you are going to like it. We will talk about mere exposure again when we talk about personal attraction. Okay, you tend to get friends that you see more often. You tend to like someone that's around you. Okay, if something is familiar to you, around you a lot, the more you will come to like it. People tend to develop a preference for things because they are familiar. So if you are out and about in a new city and you want something to drink, you might go to Starbucks, which a lot of people do because Starbucks is familiar. We know what it is. We've been there. And we know we can go get an okay cup of coffee. When we go on family vacations, we generally stop at a Chick-fil-A because that's our restaurant of choice on the road. Okay, we know at Chick-fil-A, we know what we can get at Chick-fil-A. It's very familiar to us. So when we're out in a new place and we're on the road and we see a Chick-fil-A, that's where we would stop for lunch. Let's see, what's next? That's not all. That's not all. I have a link for That's Not All. Please do not watch the whole thing. It is a Billy Mays, start around, I think, 141. He talks about Mighty Putty. But Billy Mays, I believe he is not alive anymore, but I remember him from when I was young. And he is a great illustration of That's Not All. He offers you a product at a great price, and he says, but that's not all. If you act now, I'll throw in another bottle, or I'll throw in a special prize. Okay, so it's like they sweeten the deal. There's this for X amount of money, but that's not all. If you act now, I'll add in this and that and the other. So that's not all. The last one is norm of reciprocity. People like to do things in return. So if someone does something nice for you, you are very much likely to then feel like you should do something nice for them. This happens a lot. We get a lot of pamphlets in the mail for donations. And a lot of times, especially around the holidays, there are very worthwhile organizations, philanthropies that will send us address labels. Ask your parents. I bet they know exactly what I'm talking about. So they'll send a set of address labels. So maybe it's the American Heart Association, the University of Florida, Salzbacher Center. Everybody sends stuff, right? These little address labels. And then they include a little envelope that says, well, we really need your help. Okay, just $5 will help feed a family, or donate to the scholarship fund, or whatever. and you're like, okay, well, they sent me these address labels, then I should now do something nice and donate to their company. That happens a lot. My sorority sends me like stuff every once in a while. They sent a magnet one time. And so I'm like, all right, well, now I feel like I need to donate because they gave me this magnet. And that's that norm of reciprocity. Somebody does something nice for you, you feel like you then need to do something nice. A lot of philanthropies that want donations, they'll often send some sort of little token under the expectation that the people will feel bad and then donate. All right. Those are the persuasion strategies. Again, you can find the worksheet under the enrichment tab on the website at the bottom if you scroll all the way down to unit 9. And it's fun. It will take you like 5 minutes to do it. Even if you can't print it out, you can just look at it online and see if you can get the answers right. All right, moving on from compliance, right? Just doing something because somebody has asked you, or maybe you don't understand that somebody's asking you, but you're complying to their request. To conformity. So now we're going to conformity. Conformity is adjusting our behavior to coincide with a group standard. Okay, so basically we're responding to the pull of the crowd or peer pressure. We have a strong desire as people to belong. We have a strong desire to fit in. And if you think about it, there are evolutionary advantages, okay, if we put on our evolutionary psych hats, to fitting in with the crowd, right? There's powers in numbers. And going along with the group can be a good thing. When all the group is driving on the left side of the road, it would be good to do that also, okay? Sometimes, right, if we're going against the crowd, it is not good for us. Okay, conformity is really fun, and I am a little sad that we will not be in class. There are 3 brain game videos on conformity that have linked underneath the lesson. The first one is Question the Herd. That one is a reenactment of Ash's conformity experiment. That's the big one we're about to talk about. The second one is Standing Ovations, and the third one is The Waiting Room. So The Waiting Room, if any of you are actually watching these videos, which I do appreciate that you are. The Waiting Room I showed last year, and I don't know if anybody has noticed, I have a little bell on my desk, and I bought the bell last summer, and I was like, I'm totally going to do this next year. So that's my hint. If you watch the video and I start ringing the bell when we get back, you will know what to do and will fool your other classmates. So you'll be in on it with me. Okay, so watch those. Those are really fun. They're all about conformity, right? We don't like to stand out. We like to fit in. Solomon Asch is one of the 4 people. There's only 4 people that the AP really wants you to focus on their experiments in conformity. It was Leon Festinger in cognitive dissonance, Solomon Asch with conformity, Philip Zimbardo, and Stanley Milgram for obedience. So today we're going to talk about one of the big ones, Solomon Asch. And his I do think it's a reenactment also, but it's a little bit more accurate of a reenactment, is on the social psych experiments. I listed the big 4. And so if you look at that, that would be very good for you to do. They have asked a lot about the experiment. So what the experiment was, Solomon Asch did an experiment on conformity. And if you look at your notes, okay, there's these little pictures of the lines. Okay, so what he did is he had a group of people come in, 5 to 7 college students in a room, and he told them he was doing a vision test. Okay, then he showed everybody a large card with the black lines on it. The lines were labeled A through C. There was a separate card with a single line on it, a vertical black line that was not labeled. Okay, Asch simply asked each group member in turn out loud to say which line on the card with the lettered lines was the same length as the line on the other card. So he would show them these and he would say, all right, here's A, B, and C. So which does this match? A, B, or C? And he would go down the line and say, which one do you think? Which one do you think? Which one do you think? Out of the group, there was one subject. There was 5 to 7 college-age people in the room, but the others were all Confederates. That means they were friendlies. They knew what was going on. There was really only one person they were testing. The other ones were working for the experimenter, and Ash told them which answers to give. So it started out really nice. All the Confederates would go first. Through the first couple examples, it was very obvious, and they all said the obvious answer, and the person that they were testing, unbeknownst to him, went along because it was very obvious. Then Ash said to these Confederates, start saying the wrong answer. And they all said the wrong answer, the same wrong answer. Okay, so they would say, all right, it's B, it's B, it's B, it's B. Clearly not B, it was a different letter. So then the last person at the end of the line, the real participant, what were they going to do? Were they going to be like, oh, you guys are wrong? No, clearly it's A. Or would they go along with the group and say the wrong answer? So what happened is over a third of the time, it was between 30 and 40%, 37%, the true subject shook their head, thought the other people were crazy, but went along with the wrong answer. They conformed, right? They didn't want to stick out from the group. It didn't happen in every instance, but often enough to show that participants would give a clearly wrong answer in order to go along with the group. So it illustrated conformity, okay? Now, the rates are a little lower today. We are not as conforming as the 1950s people that he was testing. However, what does it illustrate? Despite the fact that we all think that we like to dance to the beat of our own drummer, we like to fit in and we like to conform. Nobody wants to look foolish. What Ash found, however, in doing different forms of the experiment is what you need to reduce conformity is one person to dissent. So when he switched up the experiment and one of the Confederates says the correct answer, okay, the conformity rate of the participants dropped to 5%. So we went from 37% when it was unanimous to 5% conformity when we had one single dissenter. So when somebody else stands up and says, no, that's not right, it's more likely that we will not conform. So it is important to be that one person, to play the devil's advocate. All right, ethical violations, which is interesting. This one isn't cited a lot for ethical violations, but if we think about our ethical rules, he was deceiving the participant. They didn't know what was going on. So that would be an ethical violation. All right, 2 reasons we conform. We have normative social influence and informational social influence. Normative social influence arises from a person's desire to gain approval or avoid disapproval. We are very sensitive to social norms because the price we pay for being different can be severe. We like to belong. We like to fit in. We submit a lot to peer pressure to fit in, whether this is making sure we wash our hands right now thoroughly, right? That would be social conformity. We don't want to be looked at as spreading this virus any more than it needs to be. That could be wearing holey jeans. All the girls like to wear the holey jeans. Those are in. That's a fad. We want to fit in. Last year I had a lot of, or I still do, these little flutter sleeves were in. So I went out and got some flutter sleeve dresses and shirts. And that's just a fad. That is social conformity. That is normative social influence. I just want to fit in. You just want to fit in. So if we are acting and our behavior is acting in a way just to fit in, that is normative social influence. Informational social influence results from our willingness to accept others' opinions about reality. So we depend on others for our source of information. Okay, it changes the way we believe. It changes our judgment because others are saying it's different. So if you look at the original footage, I don't think it's original, but the experiment that I linked, they talk about there were two different reasons why these college men said that they were conforming. One of them was they didn't want to ruffle people's feathers. They just wanted to go with the flow. They didn't want to get any stares for saying a different answer. That would be an example of normative social influence, of succumbing to peer pressure, but you still have your own judgment that that line was wrong. And then some people said, well, I started to question myself. I thought, well, everyone else must be right. And so they relied on their judgment, and it changed their perception of the lines. They thought they were wrong. They were seeing it wrong. So that would be an example of informational social influence. So just a little split there. We are more likely to conform when we are in a group with at least 3 people. So when it's us and 3 people, that appears to be, okay, if 3 people are against us, we will go with them. If everyone in the group agrees. Okay, remember I said that single dissenter helps, but if everyone is in agreement, we tend to go along with them. We admire the group's status, or we find them very attractive. Our conformity increases. If we're made to feel incompetent or insecure, our conformity increases. If we have not made a prior commitment to an answer or a stance on something, conformity tends to increase. If we know we're being observed, conformity tends to increase. And we are less likely to conform, remember, when we have the presence of a single dissenter. And that has been a question multiple times. So again, I encourage you to watch the videos on the conformity. It's really fun. Thank you very much for all of you who have already done the exit ticket and seen the video. So this would be lesson 2. I will post one more, and that will bring us through the end of this week. So I hope everyone is staying well and that you are enjoying the time with your families like I am. All right.
Bye.
And see, bye.